The one and only Bruce Lee once said, "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." Everyone has heard this quote. It teaches us the value of practice, dedication, and the power of specialization. Enter one Robert Heinlein, American science fiction author, engineer, and naval officer. He had his own take on the matter. Specialization is for insects. Super Auto Pets consists of 4 key elements: scaling, pivoting, tempo, and scamming. Every pack specializes in one, maybe 2 of these elements, and is lacking in others. Now, what if there was a pack that strategy was to do all of them? Practice 10,000 kicks and use all of them at the same time. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to the Golden Pack. It's a jack of all trades, master of none, capable of scaling while forcing tempo, pivoting while also scamming, and winning before your opponent even has a chance to play the game. Let's get into what this pack is about. The Golden Pack, for the most part, only has one goal, and that is winning quickly. This is done by scaling faster than your opponent and outvaluing them faster than they can counter what you're up to. Before we can get into specifics though, let's talk about Turtle Pack. Wait, don't click away. I promise this is relevant, okay? Turtle Pack is one of the main contenders in the meta, and being the only free pack in the game, chances are you're going to see it more than any other pack. But that's not why we're talking about it right now. Golden is a complicated pack to explain, and in case you're not already keen on how to play the game competitively in general, talking about what a competitive game will look like on average is going to help me explain why what we are doing in this pack deviates from the norm and is so good at disruption of your opponent's strategy. That makes sense? Okay, let's talk about what a game with Turtle Pack looks like. When you're playing Turtle, you are going for one of 3 strategies. You're either scaling to the moon, using things like Rabbit to make your team massive, tempoing with something like Dog to get as many early wins as possible, to then scam the last 2 lives off your opponent using something like Scorpion, or again, trying to win as quickly as possible and then transferring into a more long-term strategy to once again scale to the moon once your opponent catches up to you. We can boil this down to scaling, tempo into scam, and tempo into pivot. Regardless of what strategy you're going with, it always happens in stages. You have your dedicated pivot turns, scam turns, or you're just not doing much outside of taking pets that make your existing ones bigger. In comparison to what we will be talking about in this video, it's an extremely static game plan. Let's discuss how this is different from our game plan. See, Golden doesn't have these conventional stages. We are scamming when we are pivoting, and we are scaling when we are applying pressure to steal those early wins, also known as tempo. Our late game is a little lacking in comparison to other packs. Coming back from multiple lives behind is doable, but it's a hell of a lot harder than what most everyone else has got to work with. I'm gonna be honest with you. This video will not really make you good at this pack. The skill floor is really high, and it's super reliant on you playing around your opponent's team. Knowing what's good for your team is only the first step, and the second is learning to play for what's bad for your opponent. To put it in easier terms to understand, I can teach you how to improve yourself. I can't teach you how to drag your opponent down without you putting in the work to figure out how to hurt their team specifically. You got that? All right, let's start getting into specifics. Okay, so funny story. Before I even thought about making this video, I was just trying to find information about this pack, and my father, Prof Ninja, sent me what is, at the time of making this video, the only professionally made guide on this pack. It only covers tier 1 pets, that's just turns 1 and 2, and it doesn't even go into the food. It's 5 pages long. Oh god, alright, okay. Luckily for you, I read it already, and I'm going to give you the spark notes. Let's start with the opossum. It's the best. It's basically a 2 gold apple, and the faint pet restriction would be limiting if it wasn't for the fact that the faint pets you have access to on turns 3 and 4 are all incredible and more than worth putting the stats on. Chipmunk and Lemming both have decent enough stat lines that should help make sure you don't lose both rounds 1 and 2, keeping you at 6 lives going into the rest of the game. They have decent abilities that can be helpful, so worth taking over some of the other options. And then there's Groundhog. It's a decent pet that increases your odds of winning turns 1 and 2. They give you a nice way to make sure you can run a squid or a surgeonfish without having to worry about cherries, and let you hold off on buying blackneck stilts because why spend gold on something you already have? The Bulldog is the powerhouse of tier 1, overpowering pretty much any other pet from any pack. If you really want to win turns 1 and 2, take some Bulldogs. The worst they can possibly do is tie around. Outside of those 2 turns though, they're pretty bad. Worth taking if you see 2 of them right off the bat, but for the sake of win consistency, you're better off taking pets that have abilities outside of battle. Let's see here. Next I have, the Magpie. Okay, this one's a bit controversial. It's gold advantage, technically, allowing you to carry extra gold into really important turns like turn 5. Personally, I like it a lot. As a lifelong Swan apologist, I will jump at any chance to get extra gold. I will admit, it takes a bit to get used to. The natural instinct to roll is strong when you have 1 to 2 gold, but it pays off going into turn 5. With that out of the way, next up is the Cone Snail. Personally, I love this little dude. If I were reviewing this on vibes instead of power, I would put him above the opossum. Sadly, I'm not ranking them on that, so the Cone Snail is useful-ish. It has a great ability on paper, but it struggles in the fact that its base stat line is garbage. If you can combine it on turn 3 with something like Lizard, you might get some extra utility, but at the end of the day, it's a pet that is as useful as how long it takes you to replace it. I would still take it over a few other pets in tier 1, mainly the Tamaran or the Magpie. I know I just said I like Magpie, but honestly, the vibes of the Cone Snail, they're immaculate. I'm sorry. But it definitely is not on the list of instant grabs if you have every option available to you. Next up, we have the Goose. Nice. Very nice. Let's see Paul Allen's pet. And, oh my. All right, we're almost done. I promise. Second to last, we have the Pied Tamarin. It's bad. Take only if you have a Groundhog already or you see 2 of them in shop. Otherwise, it's bottom tier trash that you should kick to the curb. Not everyone agrees with that. I'm not going to tell you what the other opinion is because they're wrong and I'm right. I don't care if they're better at the game than I am. I don't care if they're better at the pack than I am. I'm dying on this hill. Okay? Last but not least, we have the Silk Moth. I would compare this heavily to the Cone Snail. Its ability is decent-ish. But again, it's one of those things where it's good until you can find something to replace it. Its synergies exist, but they aren't particularly strong. Its best combo is with the Manatee. But if you have a Silk Moth long enough to be able to use it on a Manatee, then you're already doing something really wrong. Okay, we did it. That wasn't so bad, right? Now, like I said, this guide didn't cover food, but luckily our strat for food is pretty simple. There's 2 schools of thought. The first one is that you always take the apple. Freeze it if you see it on turns 1 and 2, and buy it any convenient opportunity on turns 3 and 4. Unless you have a level 2 Chipmunk that you want to put cherries on, apple is just better and the only thing worth taking in this stage of the game. Usually. Cherries have their place sometimes, but really just for activating abilities that require them, such as the Squid and the Surgeonfish. The other school of thought is basically the opposite. It's that cherries are busted in the early game, and unless by the end of turn 2 you have multiple possums, then you should not freeze the apple in favor of trying to find cherries or the odd bok choy. As mentioned a second ago, on top of producing trumpets, cherries also enable some pets that require trumpets to activate their ability. Let's move on. Okay, now that we finished the luck portion of the game, we get to a point where we actually have to think, unfortunately. Lucky for us, though, we don't have to think all that hard. On turns 3 and 4, at least. These turns are just meant for getting us ready to transition our operation from hanging in there to actually getting our engine going. We're going to go ahead and take a look at an ideal situation and one that is less than ideal, so you know what to do with most board states. Let's take a look at our magical dream world, where on turns 1 and 2 we found 2 triples. In most packs, what we would want to do is combine both of them as soon as we hit turn 3. With Golden, however, we're actually going to keep one of them behind. See, bang for buck, Golden Pack probably has the best tier 4s in the game. And if you combine to get one early, you gotta wait till turn 5 for that. Sea Lion, Vaquita, even Cockatoo, all provide a level of tempo that is really hard to fight against. Backing up for a second though, turns 3 and 4 are probably where Golden Pack is at its weakest. So instead of trying to fight an uphill battle and try and squeeze out some early wins, it's better to let yourself be a little bit weaker by keeping those tier 1s on the board. And try and tempo out your opponent once you hit turn 5. It's not to say you're definitely going to lose turns 3 and 4. Golden's tier 2 pets are decent. There are even a few that I would call great. You should still go for these wins, even if your team doesn't look all that good, which I'll admit, sometimes it won't. There's still no excuse for bad positioning though. Now let's take a look at a more realistic situation. You have 1 or maybe even no triples on board. Going into tier 3 in this situation, you're just going to focus on finding your triple, which should take a level of priority over pretty much anything else. And then there's also a few tier 2 pets that can carry you through this setback. Great options are the sea urchin and squids. They slow your opponent down a bit and help make sure you don't fall behind. In both of these situations though, you're going to be doing what we talked about previously, with the 2 lines of thinking between the apples and cherries. If you're behind though, I would much rather favor the cherries because it adds a little bit of tempo. They're a great option if you think you can't win a round without it, and early wins are the lifeblood of this pack. Because even if we have a bit of trumpet synergy on board... I haven't talked about trumpets yet. Okay, hold on. Okay, this one's on me. Probably should have done this earlier, but let's talk about the main gimmick of this pack. Golden has its own in-battle resource called trumpets. To put it simply, you have pets that create trumpets when they meet a certain condition, and then when you're down to your last pet, a golden retriever with stats equal to your trumpets will get summoned in front of it. So if you have 10 trumpets, for example, you will create a 10-10 dog. Like I said, this will spawn in front of your last pet, so don't want to put any trumpet producers in the back. I am going to get more into trumpet strats later, but I just need to get this little bit out of the way because I completely spaced on explaining what the hell trumpets are. Okay, I'm sorry. Please forgive me, I still love you. So, previously I said that Golden Pack has some of the best tier 4 pets in the game. And you know what's even better than tier 4 pets? Tier 5 pets. And even better than that? Nothing. See, that's where a lot of people usually get confused. What do you mean tier 5 pets are better than tier 6 pets? That doesn't make any sense. Hold on one moment, please. Okay, where was I? Right, let me explain that. See, Golden Tier 6 pets are really good, but they almost all require synergy and or investment better spent on Tier 5s we already have. Let's compare some of Golden Tier 6s to their Tier 5 counterparts. Highland Cow creates trumpets at the beginning of battle based on its health. When you buy it, it produces 6 trumpets. No, actually, you know what? Let's go even further. Let's say you spend an entire turn doing nothing but buying a Highland Cow, and even luckier, you have 2 foods that increase its health. The maximum health you can get it to is 14. In this example, it's only 13, but that's because I'm not made of footage. That will increase its trumpet output to 8. You know what else can create 8 trumpets? The Nyala, a tier 5 pet, and produces 8 trumpets for 3 gold, as opposed to the 9 that we spent on that Highland Cow. Oh, but dealer, what if I buff the cow and make it big? Then it produces way more than the Nyala. I'm gonna kill your dog in front of you. What? You're absolutely right. If you spend a ton of gold and time, it will eventually produce more than the Nyala. Is what I would say. If it wasn't for chocolate cake. Wait, hold on. I'm getting ahead of myself again. Where was I? Okay, we're on turn 5. So, oh, lettuce. Oh, that's right, baby. It's time for fucking lettuce. Combine them if you got them and buy some random bullshit, because it's time to just buy as many balls of leaves as the sap gods will give us. Let's go. Okay. So, lettuce is an overpowered food, like super overpowered. Like I said at the beginning of this video, stats are tempo, and lettuce gives us the most stats out of any food in the game this early. If you can get 3 on or above tier pets, it's basically sushi. A food so good that's locked behind turn 9 of Turtle Pack, and we are getting it on turn 5. There are a few caveats to this, however. It only affects pets of the current tier or higher, so you need to reserve some gold for rolling for them and buying them whenever you see them. This is also why it's so important to try and hoard levels for turn 5. If we were able to get a few early tier 4 pets and we have reliable scaling for the next 3 turns that carry a lot of weight behind them, we are golden. You like that one? Okay. See, every tier 4 pet is good. There are some standouts that are better than others, but all of them are powerhouses, even without synergy behind them. Combined with stats from lettuce, and we have a super easy line. Roll and buy lettuce until the sap gods punish us for our hubris. Later on, I'm going to do a summarized step-by-step of what Golden Game should look like that should hopefully show you why this food is so good. But for now, just trust me, okay? Lettuce is OP, and the pack dies if Team Wood were to remove it for the game. Okay, so this is where the game gets complicated. We're hitting turn 7 and above. This is where the hardest decisions happen in this pack, as well as the part I can teach you the least about, because any info I give you will never be as valuable as just running games over and over, trying to figure out how to play your opponent's counters. I am going to do my damnedest though, so let's do this. In the last section, we talked about how tier 5 pets are even better than tier 6s. In any other pack, we would be caring a lot more about levels leading up to turn 7. But we're sort of just stuck looking for pets passively while our main concern continues to be lettuce during that time. This sort of means that luck is the defining action that determines whether we get our early tier 5s or not. None of that matters though. This is the part of the game that separates the boys from the men, the geese from the urchin, the stilts from the Nyalas. This is the part of the game where we win. Ideally. Is it actually going to happen? Probably not. Winning on turns 7 and 8 is pretty rare, even if you get insane tempo. But that's not going to stop us from trying. The second turn 7 starts, we are losing some ground. Lettuce becomes worse because we would have to use all of our resources stocking up on new pets to feed it to. While we do have good spread out stats across the board, our opponents are going to have 1 or 2 big things that can chew us up, and on top of all these roadblocks, my therapist won't call me back after my 2 baboons hit my manatee 3 turns in a row instead of my hawk.
Hello, Ross. Dr. Square here, calling to let you know that we're going to have to discontinue working with you. All you do is come in and then scream for an hour about bamboos. I just don't think we're making much headway with your condition, and frankly, throwing apples at my secretary so I would feel your pain made this decision way easier than it should have been. So yes, have a great rest of your day, and please never call me again.
Okay, admittedly, that's more of a me thing, but it's still a challenge nonetheless. All right. A human being should be able to change a diaper, plan an invasion, butcher a hog, con a ship, design a building, write a sonnet, balance accounts, build a wall, set a bone, comfort the dying, take orders, give orders, cooperate, act alone, solve equations, analyze a new problem, pitch manure, program a computer, cook a tasty meal, fight efficiently, die gallantly. Specialization is for insects. Our opponents are going to have a lot going for them at this point. However, we are the jack of all trades, master of none. If our opponent has a game plan, we have a counter. If they go high, we go low. If they scale, we scam. If they pivot, we scale. And if they don't adapt, they die. For the following section, I'm going to speak as though we have access to all the pets from tier 5 and lower. And if we can't win or stabilize on turn 7s and 8, turn 9 is where we make our move. No matter what other packs you are playing against, your opponent is locked into at least 1 or 2 pets because they either rely on the ability too much for their game plan or it's simply too big to sell. We don't have that problem. We can swap our entire team at a moment's notice and replace them with bigger, stronger, more tailored answers. Turtle Pack knows that we don't have a skunk-like pet in our pack. They can't get around with positioning. Okay, we do have a food that does it, but I assure you, your opponent is going to forget it exists. So most likely, they're going to pump most of their energy into one big boy. In general, if your opponent has one big pet, our solution to almost every problem is our secret weapon. A pet that on paper doesn't seem very good, but is without a doubt the most powerful pet in our arsenal. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to the Beluga. The Beluga has an ability that at level 1 without support is a little underwhelming, but that's not what makes it so powerful. It's the combination with Chocolate Cake. See, Beluga is an all-in-one powerhouse, allowing you to have essentially any good pet at level 2 or even sometimes level 3 on board without having to invest in it. You can switch out what's under it at an instant, and this makes it super hard to play around. Let's look at the scenario I pitched before. Your opponent has one big pet on the board that can single-handedly deal with your entire team. We can either buy a Fire Ant and trade 2 for 1 with their biggest unit, or we can feed it to a Beluga, instantly upgrading it to level 2, doubling its attack stat, and by proxy, the stats it gives out as well as having it hit 2 pets instead of 1. We're still probably trading 2 pets for 1 in this scenario, but it is a stat boost that we can win us the round, or at least make our opponent find an answer, while we press synergies with our new massive 16 attack Fire Ant. In the case where your opponent has snipes, think Pufferfish for example, we have Potato and Pita Bread. If they have summons, we have Bear and Tomato to knock off their main beneficiary of the summons. If they have Melon Armor, we have Summons. If your opponent has a pet that debuffs your board, we have Warthog that gets even better with Beluga, buffing its stats, increasing its level, and protecting it from having its stats debuffed. Granted, some of our answers aren't as good as others. Snipes in particular are really hard to fight against if your opponent has enough of them. But the answers do exist, and the whole mindset of fighting your opponent versus fighting your team is the thing that makes competitive SAP so fun. I can teach you what is good for your team, but that just tells you what the pack is good at. Learning how to punish your opponent is key to making all of this work, and I can't teach you that. That comes with experience and working hard to recognize what solutions you need for the problem at hand. So we've gone through all the turns, and now we have to get even more specific. Something we have yet to do is actually look at the pets in the pack. Hell, for some parts of this, I didn't even talk about pets at all. I was too busy drooling over lettuce, so let's do that now. Look at the pets, I mean, not drool over lettuce again. So we covered all the tier 1 pets, and frankly, I don't have the energy or time to tell you about every pet in this pack. So I'm just going to point out some that I think stand out among the rest, and let you know about some of their best synergies. Starting off is the absolute GOAT of tier 2, the Urchin. 5 health is a lot in the early game. Pretty much guarantees that whatever it hits with its ability is going down in 1 hit. It's a great tempo play, and even if it doesn't win you a round, which hopefully it will at least increase your odds of tying drastically. The Squid has a similar but distinct function compared to the Urchin. The Urchin increases your odds of drawing more than winning. Squid increases your odds of winning more than drawing. Again, in the early game, 3 damage is a lot. The big difference here is that Sea Urchin increases your chance of trade dramatically, while Squid increases your odds of killing something without losing a pet in return. The fact that it starts off at 5 attack is also nice because hopefully it will get a trade before it dies. And even if it doesn't, it should protect the pet you have behind it. Next up is the Hercules Beetle. Bit of a pet project, no pun intended. Scaling is a bit of a limitation in this pack. While we do have Lettuce in the mid game, we got nada in the early game outside of Apple and a few pets that give temp stats. Hercules Beetle isn't going to give your team all that much in stats, but still a good take considering it has good base stats and it at least gives something permanent. Then we have African Penguin, also known as the Golden Snail. It's a good cycle pet. Not too much more to say about it. Hey, editing dealer here. I completely forgot to include Stoat when I was recording this. Stoat is really good. It's a tier 2 pet that really should not be tier 2. Basically, the way the math for it works is once you reach like turn 7, it is better to buy a Stoat than to roll because you are guaranteed a pet of the tier, and at worst, you sell the thing and you're down 1 gold. That's all I really have to say. It's a really good pet. Sorry about that. Blee. It's a better version of the Sea Urchin. Love this dude. Baboon. I hate him. He's scaling. I get that, but he never hits what I want him to. He's good and you should take him, but he makes me mad, okay? Flying Fish. I don't really care about the XP part. It matters for Groundhog and that's about it. But 2 XP is also +2 to each stat, and that's pretty nice. Finally, the Sea Turtle. Even if you don't take summon pets, getting a temporary +2 to everything you buy is just a nice tempo in a pack that's switching out its pets often. Let's move on to tiers 4 and 5. Tier 4 pets are just all good. All of them are so good, especially Sea Lion. Just take whatever you want. Only standouts that I really want to talk about are Manta Ray and Poison Dart Frog. Let's start out with the Dart Frog. It's good tempo early on with the Slug, but unless you get to level 2, you should really just sell it once your opponents get to a point where it can't kill anything you care about in one hit. Then there's the Manta Ray. I like him. I might be alone in that opinion, but I'm a greedy little gremlin who likes gold, so I don't care. The only thing is, if you get it, you're locking yourself into buying Macaque, which is a good pet, but late game is defined by swapping out most of your team, so locking yourself into something is really risky, unless you're already super far in the lead. For tier 5s, we have the following ones I want to point out. Nyala, 8 trumpets is a lot, and it gets even crazier with Chocolate Cake. It's good to feed to Beluga, and it's just good solid pet overall. I don't have too much to say about it. Fire Ant, on the other hand, is something that I have a lot to say about. I want you to always have this pet on your radar. It's your main counter against big pets, and it's basically required if your opponent finds a Rhino. It's almost always better under a Chocolate Cake Beluga. Speaking of Beluga, okay, I know I already hyped up the Beluga a lot, but I need you to understand how good it is. It makes your team so customizable. It is the sole reason that some tier 6s are even playable. Great example is the Warthog. In most situations, it's really hard to get the same value without it. Almost every game you play, you should end with a Beluga on your team, and there's very little situations where you would skip it for any reason. Going into tier 6, we have Wildebeest. Coconut is the best perk in the game next to Peanuts. Blocking all damage once, maybe even twice, is incredible and cannot be overvalued enough. Also, it may feel counterintuitive, but feeding it to a Beluga is actually pretty good. It lets you get good stats on it without investing, you can trade it out if you no longer have Trumpets as a viable option, and it gets to start at level 2, assuming you have Chocolate Cake, which you want on Beluga pretty much always. Next up is the Bear. It's good against teams that don't have snipes, and already have super big pets. 12 damage spread across 2 pets is really strong for sealing a win. Even if it only triggers once, low chance you're going to keep this thing up until the late game, but it's good tempo, so I want you to think about it at least. At this stage in the game, scaling for your home team is a bit slow. Warthog is a great fix to this. Again, under a Beluga. You kind of see in the pattern here, Warthog is a great option for buffing your team, and you can decide how many pets you want it to spread its stats to based on where you place it. Amazing pet overall. Oyster. Okay, if you have a pet you want to sell or you're missing a slot on your team, there is never a reason not to buy an Oyster. It's just free gold. Okay, so we've gone through everything now. I'm going to quickly run through a game with what Golden Pack should look like. I want to make it very clear, this is what a game should look like in a vacuum. I'm basically going to be rehashing everything I said in this whole video, but shortening it a lot so you have a nice, easy blueprint in your head that will hopefully remind you about what you watched. Make sense? Okay, let's get this over with. I've spent way too much time making this damn video. Turns 1 and 2, looking for triples. Turns 3 and 4, looking for triples. Again, position good and try and win while looking for said triples. Turns 5 and 6, combine triples and spam lettuce. It's OP. Turn 7 and 8, get yourself some tier 4s. They're good, and better yet, they believe in you. Turn 9 and above, make your team modular. Nothing is too big to keep around. Always be looking at your opponent and take everything you can to counter their shit. That's it. That's literally it. I know this all sounds easy, but it is a lot to get the hang of. I completely believe you can do it though. I've been playing this pack for a little bit now, and I gotta tell you, I could not have made this video without help from some people who are way better at the game than myself. Special thanks to Mr. Fellows for being the main person to teach me this pack and looking over my script to make sure everything I say here is kosher. He is insanely good at this pack and the game for that matter. I also want to take this opportunity to shout out the Super Auto Pets Discord. They have way smarter people in there than myself, and they also host fun events all the time if that sort of thing interests you. To end this off, all I have to say is thank you so much for watching this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed. I love you more than you could ever know, and happy hunting.